making fun of him, I was making fun of you guys. Yeah, I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm a retired submarine officer. Did you guys know that? I spent 20 years in the submarine force. Most of you knew that. I spoke here before. Usually the first time I speak somewhere, I always manage to tell people that. And people will usually remember. The stern is the back. Did you know that? I had a guy write some lessons for the Herald a while back, and he made a reference to Jesus being asleep in the front. And so I didn't even tell him that he was incorrect on that. I just fixed it in the lessons and we moved on. I'm kind of a little embarrassed this morning. Normally I have a PowerPoint presentation, but when I do these presentations, I'm normally on the road somewhere. So I've spent the night in a hotel. Well, I stayed at home last night. It's only 45 minutes home. I got up this morning and I told my wife goodbye. I told my daughter goodbye. I grabbed my Bible and off I went. And I got over here and I got it. When I pulled in the parking lot, I thought, oh, I left my bag at home, which has my thumb drive and everything else in there. So we'll just do it without a presentation this morning. I am from the Christian Restoration Association, and we're over in Mason, Ohio. And what are we about? We're about defending and disseminating pure New Testament Christianity. That's what I say. To defend and disseminate pure New Testament Christianity. Why do we do that? So that congregations can properly prepare people for eternity. I don't want to preach to you this morning, but at least not yet. But I think probably the scariest verses in all the scriptures are those verses in Matthew 7 when Jesus says, not everyone says to me, Lord, Lord, is going to the kingdom of heaven. I think that's very scary verses. There is a proper way to prepare. So what we want to do is we want to defend and disseminate pure New Testament Christianity so that congregations like yourselves can properly prepare people for that judgment day. Well, where did the CRA come from? There was a guy back in the 1800s known as Sidney S. Clark, and he left some money. I haven't been able to determine exactly how much money that was, and I haven't been able to exactly determine when he died. I've tried to do some historical research on that, and I can't find it. But this guy named Sidney S. Clark, he left some money, and what the money was for was to start churches in what he called destitute places, places where there was no Christian church, Church of Christ. There was no New Testament church. And he left the money with the Richmond Street Church of Christ there in Cincinnati. Well, over about a 3 to 5 year period, there were over 30 congregations started in 7 states. And so the work was extremely successful right out of the block. By now we're talking in the 19-teens, 1915, 1920, that kind of time frame. Well, the whole work was so successful from this Sidney S. Clark, his estate, that people thought, hey, let's get in on the act, and people wanted to contribute money and help this program go. Well, the problem was they ended up in court, and the judge told them, you can't add money to an existing estate. Sorry about that. Well, the elders at Richmond Street, they were smart enough to figure out, well, if we can't add money to the Clark estate, we'll just start something called the Clark Fund. So they started a thing called the Clark Fund, and people put money into that. And congregations continue to be started, 7 or more states with 30 or more congregations. And this is about 1920 or so, 1920, 1923. And about that time period, much to their credit, the elders at the Richmond Street Church said, you know what? This is too much for us to manage. I've said this for years, I don't care if your congregation has 50 people, 500 or 5,000. If elders are doing what elders are supposed to do, they have enough going on just in their local congregation. So the idea that they were going to elder their local congregation and also oversee this program that was sending out evangelists to start churches in places, that was never going to happen. So the Clark Fund transitioned to become the Christian Restoration Association. And that's how the Christian Restoration Association came to be. So it was really a renaming of the Clark Fund, and it became its own organization with its own trustees, and that was in 1925. So now the Christian Restoration Association takes over this organization that was overseeing this Clark estate, basically to send out and start churches. Well, the 1920s were a very interesting time. There were 3 big things going on in the 1920s. The first thing that was happening was liberalism. Now, that's a word that you can say, and people wonder what in the world does that mean. Biblically, at least this is the John Mitchell definition, liberalism is when you start denying cardinal doctrines of the Bible. And by the time the 1920s came along, liberalism had really taken hold, denying the virgin birth, denying miracles, denying blood atonement, denying the bodily resurrection, denying the inspiration of scriptures. And that's a whole other conversation why that ever came to be. But liberalism was really putting a lot of pressure on our churches. By this time, if you know your Restoration Movement history, the split with the disciples of Christ and the Christian churches had already happened. You guys familiar with that? And one of the big things with that was liberalism. The disciples had become very liberal in denying these doctrines. So that split had occurred. So liberalism was putting a lot of pressure on the churches. Another thing that was happening was open membership. Word was starting to get back from the missionary field that the missionaries were just practicing open membership. I'm joking, but if you could spell Jesus, they would help you into they would allow you into the fellowship. It wasn't quite that bad, and that open membership was happening. Then at the same time, what was starting to happen is they were starting to gain some centralized control over mission agencies. And you can tell where that was going to go. That was going to be the start of another denomination. And so those three factors, liberalism, open membership, and centralized control, were really putting pressures on our churches. Well, the CRA is a relatively new organization, and it sort of became the organization that was going to defend against those things. Because all three of those are against what I call pure New Testament Christianity. So the CRA kind of became a defense organization. So early on, when I say we defend and disseminate pure New Testament Christianity, early on it really was about disseminating when all those churches were started, but it kind of quickly transitioned into defending the faith. Then there was a number of things that happened over the next, say, 30 to 40 years as you go into the 1920s up into the mid-60s. I mentioned missionaries. The idea of direct support missions, that was a Christian Restoration Initiative. I don't know how you guys do your missions work here, but my guess is most of your mission money you send directly to the mission or the missionary. Is that true? Yeah, and that was a Christian Restoration Association initiative. I don't know what foreign missionaries you serve. We were real proud of ourselves. When I was the minister of the Union Grove Christian Church down in Virginia, us and a congregation down in Roanoke, we were the only two providers for missionary to the Philippines. We provided, our goal down there was to be the sole source of that missionary's funds, but unfortunately we weren't quite big enough to do that, but we partnered with a congregation down in Roanoke. And this idea that us and the church in Roanoke will just send the money to the missionary out there in the Philippines. No in between, no missionary organization. We'll have direct control direct input into that missionary. So the idea of giving money straight to mission organizations, that was a CRA initiative. The Christian service camps were started through us. And there were a couple other things. But one of the big things that happened between the 1920s and the 1960s was what I refer to as the hostile takeover by the disciples of Christ. Some of you guys, I don't think anybody here is old enough to remember that, which is good. You do? You remember that? The disciples tried to basically take over all of our churches. And their idea was they were going to collect us all into a congregation. They were going to control our properties. They were going to control our congregations. They were going to control all that. Well, we ended up going to court. And the CRA, Christian Restoration Association, it was the front line of defense on that. Now, I wasn't even born yet, so I can't take any credit for it. But the CRA is the one that ended up in court. One of our trustees, a guy named Luther Burris, who I never met, obviously, but apparently he was an unbelievably brilliant man. He was a lawyer, preacher, and one of our trustees. He wrote all these briefs for the judges. And I can't remember now, I didn't bring my slides with me, but I think there were just 17 different court cases. And the disciples kept bringing court cases against the independent Christian churches in various places, just trying to find one court case they could win that says, yes, it's okay for you to take over that congregation. And they kept trying to find they had court cases in all over various states. My memory serves me right, there were 17 of them, just trying to win one court case. Well, Luther Burris, he wrote briefs for the judges to explain to the judges what the issues were about the autonomy of the churches, and the local eldership. And he provided, and we have old records of those at the CRA. I read one of them. It was very interesting. But he did all that. He never charged us anything. And you guys are familiar with Harvey Bream. Everybody knows Harvey. Well, Harvey was one of the main guys that would testify in these court cases. So when they would go to court, the attorney for the congregation would get Harvey up on the stage, and Harvey would speak to and answer questions about what the real issues were. That we are autonomous, where all the congregations are autonomous. You have your own eldership, you get your own preacher, you control your own funds. We're not under some big denominational hierarchy. As old Ray Bennett likes to say, our headquarters is in heaven. So Harvey and Luther Burris, those were the main two guns. And they really, I hate to say it, I don't hate to say it, they were really the two guys that were responsible for beating back the disciples, winning all of those court cases. And the disciples never won a single court case because of the efforts of Luther Burris and Harvey Bream under the umbrella of the Christian Restoration Association. So in some ways, we attend the Spring Hill Church of Christ up in Middletown. You guys are here at the Mount Olive Church of Christ. I guess this is New Vienna. Is that true? In a lot of ways, we owe our independence and the fact that we're still autonomous and not part of that Disciples of Christ organization because of the efforts of the Christian Restoration Association. So that really shaped us from the 20s up into the 60s. Well, where are we now? Well, I mentioned that we defend and disseminate pure New Testament Christianity. Well, how do we do that? How do we work on defending and disseminating pure New Testament Christianity? Well, one is we educate. We educate. We do that through a number of things. We publish the Restoration Herald every month. I know you guys have it back there on the back and you can get it. And a lot of congregations that support us, and you guys are regular supporters of ours, and we appreciate that. Most people just pick it up on the way out or in. If you're not a reader, I encourage you to. And if you want a subscription, just give our office a call and we'll be glad to sign you up and send that to you monthly, or you can get it in the back. I'm trying to turn everybody I meet into a reader of the Restoration Herald. We're proud of it and work hard on it. There's a lot of people that lament the fact that we don't have better publications in our brotherhood. So we publish the Restoration Herald. We also publish a lot of books. Right now we're up to over 60 books we've published. We published 8 books last year, 7 books the year before. So we're publishing a book every couple of months. Now, admittedly, a lot of those are Jack Cottrell books. When he finally gets done writing, we might not publish quite so many, but we publish books. And one of the things that we do in terms of educating, one of the things that I'm really trying to get us going on this at the Christian Restoration Association is trying to provide books that have a wide spectrum of appeal. We've always published books that would be more like what I would call pure commentaries. Gareth Reese books, Jack Cottrell commentaries, verse-by-verse study commentaries. That's not for everybody. But we're starting to publish more books that would be like new believer books, basic Christian doctrine, Christianity 101. So those are books that you can give to somebody who's a new believer, or you could have a new believer class. If you have somebody that you're trying to win to Christ that have basic information in them, basic faith things. We have books on communion meditations. We've got books that are special studies on baptism or the Holy Spirit. So we have a wide variety of books. We're trying to do some books that have to do with, might be more conducive to a small group study or Bible school lessons. We've done several books along those lines. So in our books, we have a wide variety of books, and I'm sure if you're looking for a particular thing on a particular topic, we have something that can address it. So we do that through our educating, through our publishing. We also do a couple of different Bible conferences. We do a Bible conference down in Florida in January at Kissimmee Christian Church called the Florida Bible Conference. And it's a great event. If you're looking for a way to get a winter getaway, I would highly encourage you to do that. I know not everybody has the money to travel, but it's a good event. It's Monday through Wednesday. Last year we started doing some workshops on Tuesday afternoon. Those were very well received. And then Wednesday afternoon we give you all afternoon off. So it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with Wednesday afternoon off. And it's a real good event. And like I said, if If you think about how it is every winter and you think, man, it gets cold by about the middle of January, hop in your car, come on down to Florida, spend a couple days with us. Kissimmee is a great church. They have a great congregation. If you get down there in time, you can worship there on Sunday and then spend a couple days with us. So we do the Florida Bible Conference, and we also do an every 2-year, I think that's biennial, is that right? An every 2-year CRA conference over in Mason. So we did it last year, 2020. We're going to do it next year in 2022. Tends to be a little bit of a more of a kind of a theological event than a typical rah-rah camp meeting, but it's a good event, but you don't have to be a theologian to come. And next year's is going to be on rediscovering Romans. So all the messages, all the teachings are going to come from Romans. So that's going to be, so we do the Bible conferences. So we publish, we do the Bible conferences, and we're also going to start, we haven't done these in a while, but we're going to start back doing a couple seminars a year on various topics. We're in the process right now of upgrading our audio-visual system so we can do that. And I don't know if you guys have heard or not about how supply chains are really disruptive and it's hard to get stuff. Is anybody having trouble with that? A couple of you guys are nodding yes. Well, we've learned that that really is true. We had a set of blinds in our building that broke back in April. So we had a guy come over. He gave us an estimate. We were going to place some blinds in our building. Well, April became May, and May became June, and June became July, and we waited 3 months. And they were faux, I think that means fake, faux wood, and the guy couldn't get them. But he had real wood ones in, so he finally said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you real wood ones for the price of the fake wood ones, because he waited 3 months, and he couldn't get the supplies in. Well, meanwhile, we are upgrading our audiovisual system. Well, that job is about 75% done, but it's not 100% done. Why? We're waiting on some electronic equipment. So those of you who nodded yes, I hope that it's not impacting your business as much as it's impacting ours. But it's been a little frustrating because we would like to get that audiovisual system upgraded because we want to start doing these seminars. Then the other thing we're going to do with our new system, I don't know, I don't want to talk bad about anybody or any place, but I will, no, I won't. I really think the future is going for preachers. I think the future for preachers is going to be we're going to have to home grow them. For quite a while now, our Bible colleges just are not producing preachers. So we're going to have to home grow. Were you confused at what I said?
I didn't understand. You're going to have to home grow.
Home grow. So we're going to have to grow preachers at home, which means you have a young man or a middle-aged man, you have a guy here who's interested in being a preacher, you have to work with him here. So what I want to start doing, we're going to start doing this once we get our system up and running, is kind of producing material, just videos that can help guys be homegrown. And not, I haven't got the whole thing worked out in my mind, but that's one of our biggest initiatives right now. And some people, I say that, and they think, that's crazy. Well, no, it's not crazy. Where did our preachers come from 150 years ago? Think about that. You think about the Thomas Campbell, Alexander Campbell, the Barton W. Stones, the Walter Scotts, the J.W. McGarveys, the Raccoon John Smiths. Those guys weren't Bible college graduates.
Well, just go back to Jesus' time.
Yeah.
They were all his disciples.
Right.
They were with every day.
So, I mean, I think the Bible college model was great for the time, but they no longer committed to producing preachers. So the best thing to do is to home grow them. And the other thing about home growing them is I participate in the GAP Youth Preaching Camp. You guys familiar with that? This is off the subject of the CRA. But Kevin Yeager started a camp called the GAP Youth Preaching Camp. GAP was Go and Proclaim. And that was a GAP ministry that Kevin ran. But it no longer exists, but we still are doing the preaching camp. And one of the best things that ever happened to me is I was lucky to have the chance to participate in the very first camp that we did, and that was in 2007, which is up at Camp Wakatomica, which is near Danville, Ohio, Mount Vernon, up in wherever northeast is, whichever direction northeast is from here. I think it's that way, but don't quote me on that. And the GAP Youth and Preaching Camp, we have 5 guys that work at that camp. I work there. Dean Jackson, you guys know him? If you don't, that's okay. A guy named Jeff Tucker, a guy named Mike Hawkins, and Paul Ponchot. Of the 5 of us, only Paul Ponchot went to Bible college out of high school and started preaching. The rest of us all did something else for 15 to 20 years and then decided to get into the ministry. Now, the whole point of that is, you got a guy here, he's 35 years old, he's 40 years old. He's 35 or 40 years old, and he thinks, you know what? I think I'd like to get into the ministry. Well, that's great. But there's at least one problem with that. He's got a wife and 3 kids. And it's hard to just say, okay, wife and 3 kids, we're going to stop and we're going to go to Central College of the Bible or wherever it is. Where does the money come from? Instead, he can keep working at XYZ Enterprises and start working through videos and various other resources to get himself ready to preach. Does that make sense? So that's one of the biggest initiatives we have going on. So we're not doing that yet because we're still waiting on supplies. But we're going to start working on that. And there are several friends of mine in the Brotherhood that have kind of figured the same thing out, and they're starting to work on that too. So I was kind of off the subject. I hope that was okay. But we educate. The other thing we do is we try to equip. We have a couple of programs. Probably the single best program that we have at the Christian Restoration Association is a money loaning program called Recycled Riches. And it's called Recycled Riches. And what we do with that money is we provide 0 interest loans to congregations for whatever particular use they might have. Originally, the program was designed for a starting congregation, a church plant, to purchase or build their first building. That was the original idea behind it. You're meeting at home, you're meeting in a storefront, and now you want to get out and get your first building and get going. That was the original intent of the program, but we've expanded it now to where congregations are renovating their buildings. Are you guys familiar with the First Church of Christ over in Lynchburg? Is Lynchburg over, down, around? It's not that way. We did a Recycle Riches loan for them about 1.5 years ago. And I went over there to preach for them after they got done. The joke, I said I was going to go over there, and a couple of guys joked. They said, if you attend church there, make sure you take your umbrella. And I went, take my umbrella? And they said, yeah, because the plaster's falling out of the ceiling. And we gave them $100,000 or $150,000, and they renovated their building. And I went over there and preached, and I'm telling you, that's one of the prettiest buildings I've ever been in. If you haven't been over there in a while, you ought to go check it out. Don't attend there. Keep attending here, but go check it out. But there was not a thing inside that auditorium they did not touch. I mean, they touched everything in that auditorium. They had professionals come in and redo their pews. They cleaned up all their things. They redid all their woodwork. They replaced all their windows. They got new windows in the whole thing, new ceiling, new lights. Everything in there is completely redone. And I walked in that day, I was stunned. I mean, it's just beautiful. So, and your building's in pretty good shape. There's a lot of buildings in our Brotherhood that are what I call tired. They're tired buildings. So we have a 0 interest loan program to provide loans to congregations with no interest and allow them to renovate. We've done a loan recently for a congregation over in Illinois that's growing, and they are building a expansion to their building for their children's ministry. Did another one for one of these congregations that built one of these multi-purpose buildings a while back, but it was getting tired too. So they've refloored that, they've redone that whole, they've kind of basically just refurbished their multi-purpose building where they have their church services. So we've also loaned money to congregations just to buy land, so they can buy land to build on. So that Recycled Riches loan is a tremendous program where we provide 0 interest loans. And just for completion, the biggest loan we've ever done is $600,000. So if you need $7 million, we can't help you. But if you need $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000, we can help you. So we equip with those. Excuse me. We also have another pot of money that we use to support preachers, a minister support program. We got 4 guys right now that we're providing support to. And we do that on a 3-year basis, so much one year, a little less the next year, and a little less the following year. And it's normally for congregations that are church plants or just getting started. So we have a guy Down in California we're helping, guy down in North Carolina. So we have guys around in different places across the country that we're helping with that. And we have a couple other pots of money that we use also. So we educate with all that and we equip. And a couple other things we do is we just, we pray for the churches. We try to encourage them. I try my best to just, especially the things I write in the Herald, I try to encourage people because it can be a little discouraging right now with what's going on in the culture and stuff. So we are trying our best to pray and encourage. And we're just trying to tell people that they can endure, just to keep on keeping on and keep doing the Lord's work. So that's kind of where we are right now as far as our the things that we do. I'm trying to think if there's anything I left out because I told you I got over here. I didn't have my thing with me, so I'm doing all this top of my head. Thinking, I think I've mentioned everything. Well, how can you help us? How can you help us? Well, I'll mention several things. First, just pray for us. Please pray for us. I don't know about you, but I've heard 2 or 3 things over the years that I sure wish I knew who said them so I could give them credit for it. Do anybody else have that problem? You hear something, you think, man, I sure would like to give somebody credit for that. I heard a guy say one time that he noticed that the more he prayed, the more coincidences happened. Anybody else ever notice that? I'd like to give the man credit for that. I don't remember who said that. But to just pray for us. I've noticed in my own life that the more you pray, the more things just happen to work out. Isn't that funny how that is? So please pray for us. The second thing I would say is partake of what we do. I mentioned the Florida Bible Conference, the symposium we do over there in Mason every 2 years, our Restoration Herald. If you need a Bible study book, I would like for you to, if you're thinking, hey, we need something to study in our Bible school class, I would hope the first thing you would do is go out to our bookstore and see if there's anything out there, or give us a call. We'd be glad to help you. The ladies in the office are super, and they'd be glad to help you and tell you what kind of things we have. So, use the resources, take advantage of the opportunities we have, especially more than anything else, read the Herald. Then I would say, partner with us. We are like a lot of ministries. We're totally at, I hate to say the mercy, but we're at the mercy of individuals and congregations to provide us financial support. Now, you guys at Mount Olive support us, and we're very thankful for that. I was talking to an elder back in the spring, and I told him, I said, one of the things that really worries me is that the people that support us and the congregations that support us don't realize how much we appreciate it. I send a thank you letter out every month to the individuals and the congregations that support us. Usually that ends up being somewhere between 150 and 175 letters. So we have 150, 175 either congregations and or people that provide support every month. Well, it's impossible to visit everybody. I couldn't visit every congregation and thank them if I wanted to. So I was telling that guy, I said, one of the things that I worry about is people don't realize how much we appreciate them. And he said to me, well, you don't know how much we appreciate you. And I said, well, as long as we can keep that mutual relationship going, we'll be in good shape. But we appreciate congregations like Mount Olive that provide support to us. But individuals do also. So, and no amount's too little. It's amazing how many little contributions we get in, but they all add up, and we're thankful for every little thing. And the Lord can multiply anything. So pray for us. Partake of the things that we have, and then partner with us and be willing to provide us any kind of financial support. So that's us. We defend and disseminate pure New Testament Christianity. We talked a little bit about the history of where we came from. I hope you have appreciation for that. I really can't emphasize enough, if you're thankful to be in an independent Christian church where you have your own elders, you pick your own minister, you do with what you want to with your own funds, we would all be disciples of Christ if it wasn't for the Christian Restoration Association. And then we talked a little bit about what we do now as far as our publishing and things we're trying to get doing for the Brotherhood. So, anybody have any questions about anything?
As far as access to the books, how do you get to that?
Well, there's 2 ways to do it. You go to our website, thecra.org, thecra.org. If you go to our website, at the top of the website, there's 2 or 3 links, and one of those is the bookstore. So you can get to the bookstore and you can order from there, or you can just call the office. Our number, some of you are writing down, our number is 513-229-8000. 513-229-8000. 513-229-8000. So those are two different ways. And not everybody's computer savvy. We have a lot of people call in order, so either one of those. And I tell you, our ladies, they pride themselves on getting orders out the same day or the next day. Bubba, he's our mail guy. He comes about 10:30, 11 in the morning. We get there at 9. If you order overnight, it'll be in the next day's mail. And so we are real good. The ladies, they just pride themselves on getting orders out. So go to the website and order. You can order and pay and do everything there. Or if that's a little intimidating to you, just call the office and the ladies would be more than happy to help you. And like I said, if you have questions about the books, then call and ask. And if the ladies can't answer it, they probably can, then I can. I'll be glad to talk to you. Any other questions?
You using material from like George Fall material or anything like
What's that now?
that? You use any other material besides your own, like George Falls?
Do I use it? Oh, yes, I do personally. We don't sell that. So all the George Fall, the Summit stuff, you have to get that through Summit. There are some, we sell books that we don't publish. Like I mentioned, the Gareth Reese commentaries. Those are actually published by another publisher, but Gareth Reese provides them to us and wants us to sell them. Jim Nichols, he writes a lot of articles for us in the Herald. He self-publishes, so he'll go through his own publisher, but then he wants us to sell his books. It doesn't matter to us. We don't mind. It's in some ways, it's almost easier for us, for them to do the work to get their book published and then give it to us. But Christy Rickert, who is one of the 3 ladies that works for us, Christy Rickert handles all of our publishing. So we have published a number of books, and I got an email from a guy yesterday, and he's writing a book and he's self-publishing it. Well, he thought it was going to be out in the spring. Now he's hoping to get it out by November, because what he's finding is proofreading and getting something ready to publish is a whole lot harder than he thought. And having been there for 2 years now, this month marks my 2-year anniversary being at the CRA. Having been there for 2 years, it's hard. It's amazing how hard it is to get things ready for published. We do the Herald, and if you read through the Herald and you find a misspelled word or a word missing or something, that's okay. I'm not that embarrassed about it. Each article in the Herald gets read 7 times. Any of you guys ever done proofreading? Proofreading is hard. I didn't realize how hard it was. But the mind's ability to read what it's supposed to be versus what it actually is on the paper is amazing. We had a guy just recently, and he was talking about their congregation. And instead of spelling that T-H-E-I-R, he had spelled it T-H-E-R-E. Well, he wrote it. His wife reads his articles. We have 2 ladies that we pay to proofread. Then I read it, and then 2 of the ladies in the office read it, and my wife read it. She's 8. My wife was the only one who caught that. I mean, you would think that'd be obvious, but proofreading is hard. So anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about proofreading, but anyway, we don't sell George Falls things. You can get those through Summit, but we do sell a number of things that are published by other people. With what? Yes, right. Anybody, any other questions? We don't sell any children's curriculum. We sell 2 children's books, and that's it. There's a couple of things that we're trying to expand into. One is more women's books. We've had a lot of requests for more things that are written by women for women. And another thing we're giving some thought to is what kind of stuff can we do for children? And we really hadn't done anything along those lines. We sell 2 excellent books. We sell a book, they're both published by Apologetics Press, which is a non-instrumental group down in Alabama. One's called Are You Ready to Be Baptized? Everywhere I go, I always take that book with me. That book is fantastic. Are You Ready to Be Baptized? And it's an excellent book. And then the sequel to that is called Now That I'm a Christian. And they were designed for kids. And my girl was about 9, 9 and a half, and she was asking about being baptized. So I gave her that Are You Ready to Be Baptized book. I said, read this. And she read through it. We sat down and talked about it and came to the conclusion she wasn't ready. So it was about 1.5 years later before we finally got around to baptizing her. But it's a really good book. But no, we don't. And that's something we're looking at. I'm learning I don't know how many of you guys own your own business or do your own thing, but I'm learning that it's fun to set goals, and it's nice to have things you're shooting for, and I'm learning that you can only do so many things at one time, you know. So trying to prioritize and figure out what to do is, I've gone from a 1-year plan to like a 6-year plan. Does that make sense? So I appreciate some of you chuckling at that, but we're doing our best. Any other questions? That was a good question, by the way. Any other questions?
Yes. Do we still have a problem with the disciples of Christ?
No. No.
Pretty much.
That was when all those, basically, after they lost all of those court cases in the late 50s and early 60s, they basically packed up and went home. They were honestly trying to find one court case they could win. And when they lost all those court cases, they finally realized we're never going to win one of these, and they packed up and went home. Thank goodness.
We had, several years after that, they published a book, and our church's name was in it. We had to get a lawyer to get our name out.
Yep, they continued to do that for a while, but as far as trying to actively take over, they stopped. So, anybody else? Well, I hope that was informative. If it wasn't, let me know, and I'll modify it for next time. But I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate you guys' support, and I think we're done, right?